Somebody by Depeche Mode on Revenge of the 80s Radio. It features Alan Wilder on the keyboards, and he is my guest. Alan, before leaving Depeche Mode, you issued a statement that included both praise of the continually improving musical quality of the band, but major dissatisfaction over the rest of the operations. Talk about why you left.
I guess the last couple of years in particular, the communication wasn't too great between us all for various reasons. They'd become quite disparate. And during the making of the last album I was involved in, which was Songs of Faith and Devotion, I think it had reached an all-time low. But the perverse thing is that actually that's my favourite album, but it was the most difficult and non-enjoyable one to make. And I guess there is some truth that you need some conflict, to create the best things, But I don't know. But I wasn't really enjoying it, I can say that. And then we did a tour after that, and the tour was fine. I mean, I had a good time, and we played. It was a great tour, and lots of people came and all that. But I'd really already made the decision that by then I wanted to move on and do some other things, which is, there were a number of different reasons. I mean, I also wanted to have a family. I wanted just a complete change of life, in a way. And I had this side project going, Recoil, which, I'd been tinkering around with, done an album or two, and I really thought, well, this is the obvious thing for me, just to take this project further. It can be much more autonomous. I can be complete control of it and bring in different guest vocalists, and it would be something completely different to what I was used to do with Depeche Mode. And I could do it as primarily a studio project, and then it's only now that we're actually taking it on the road 25 years later.
Well, still, you did stay very long with Depeche Mode. Were the problems that caused you to leave sort of new, or have been brewing with the band for some time?
No, I don't think it was an immediate thing. I think it was something that sort of grew and became more of a problem as time went on. But I'd also felt that I'd sort of grown out of it in a way. It didn't feel the same to be doing the same routine every year after year after year. And I just felt a little bit frustrated. I wanted to do some different things. So it was a combination of elements, really. I mean, we didn't really fall out, we didn't have any great big fights. It just became a little lethargic in the studio. People were off doing different things, and it just didn't feel very satisfying anymore to me.
Recoil was already your side project. It seemed like an interesting idea when you started in 1986 with a relatively minimalist demo. What was the intent when you started the Recoil project?
Well, it was really just for fun, something to do while Depeche Mode had a bit of downtime. I wanted to carry on working, playing around with samplers. I always wanted to make music, so I didn't have any serious thoughts about a Recoil project. Just it was a name to put to the music I was fiddling around with, and it grew slowly over time. After we decided to release this demo, it was only really ever considered to be a demo, but it was difficult to replicate properly. So between myself and Daniel Miller at Mute, we said, well, why don't we just release the thing? And that's how it was born. And as I say, it was only really once we decided, or I decided to leave Depeche Mode, that I thought, well, this is my serious, what I do now. This is my serious project. And it seemed a bit daft to just sort of start something else. So I thought, well, I'll just carry on doing that and develop it and bring more people into it. And it offers me. I can only speak for my personal taste in music, but it offers me the scope to do whatever I want. It may not be as commercial, perhaps, but that's not really the primary reason for doing what I do. Sometimes, by accident, Recoil music can sound quite commercial, and other times it can sound very weird. None of that's a problem for me. I just do what I do and see where it goes.
Alan Wilder is with me on Revenge of the 80s Radio. Alan, talk about some of those things that you did want to do musically with Recoil that you couldn't do with Depeche Mode. All things considered, Depeche Mode had become more of a pop, dance, industrial-oriented group, and you just said there were things you wanted to embark on differently musically.
Well, we were always really constricted. Perhaps that's not the right word, but we were working within this pop format. And there's nothing wrong with good pop music. I'm not against good pop music, but I wanted to do some other things as well. And I didn't think that with the mode and sort of set up around Martin's songs that we had, we could go that wide. Just wanted to be more experimental, I suppose. And as I say, I think we did some great stuff, especially towards the end of that period. And I'm very happy with a lot of it, But I wanted a bit more. I wanted to do something that's kind of stretches the boundaries, pieces of music that would expand more, would allow more kind of sound experiments, more kind of strange arrangements and structures. And I'm still doing that now. It's much more of the writing process is completely different, because with Mode we always started with a song. You know, Martin would write in a very traditional sense, so he'd get his acoustic guitar and voice, and he'd have a sort of 3-4 minute song complete with words and everything, just like most singer-songwriters do. I work in completely the opposite way. I start with sort of sound experiments, great long atmospheric pieces using bits of noises and samples, and then gradually from that we refine it down to some kind of song at the very end, you know, hopefully, not always. So it's the opposite to Depeche, but having said all that, the approach to actually putting it together in the studio, the way the technology works, the sort of different tools we use, that's quite similar. And what I'm doing now with Recoil is not so far removed to what I used to do in the studio on Songs of Faith and Devotion, for example.
Now, you've brought in several guest musicians over the years to work with you on these Recoil projects. Which ones brought with them some of the most interesting contributions to your work?
Well, on the last Recoil album, Subhuman, we had an unknown singer. He's actually from Texas, lives in Austin, called Joe Richardson. And he's a fantastic blues singer that's kind of just unknown. I discovered him on the internet, which is the modern way to work, isn't it? And when I heard this voice coming out of the speakers, I just thought, well, he must be a very famous, well-known blues musician. And I did some research and found out that he wasn't at all, you know. So that was very exciting to me to work with people that purely on the basis of how they sound, you know, there's no reputation to worry about, just how, if they sound good, they sound good. And I eventually ended up on that album coming over to record with him in Texas, which is a great experience, and we got loads of really interesting work done. He's also a very good guitarist. And then there's other people that your listeners might be more familiar with, like Douglas McCarthy, who's a singer with Nights Arab. And they used to support Depeche Mode a lot on tour, and in fact they did again recently on the recent Mode tour. And Douglas and I have been good friends for years through that connection and Mute Records, and he's sung on quite a few Recoil tracks, some of the earlier tracks like Faith Healer. Then there's Diamanda Gallas, who's an incredibly gifted singer who's also on Mute Records. She's done some stuff with me. We've had Nicole Blackman, who's from New York, spoken word artist. You know, it's a wide range of styles as well. You know, anything from blues to spoken word, I will consider using that. You know, I think it fits with what I do.
What makes Recoil a continually standout project is that you make it a point to not have boundaries and constantly push musical genre borders. You've worked with, as you said, spoken word people, vocal quartets, 40s jazz-style musicians, industrial artists, the whole gamut.
Well, you mentioned vocal quartets, and that reminds me, of course, of the Golden Gate Juliet Quartet, who sang on a song called Jezebel. And that's another approach I sometimes take, where I'll find a pre-recorded piece of music. In this case, it was a cappella vocals. And then I'll adapt some of my music to make some new postmodern hybrid, you know. And we get very interesting sort of electro blues combinations, like with this track Jezebel, and also another track I did called Electro Blues for Booker White. Booker White's a very famous old blues singer as well. And in each case, I actually sampled the voice first and then built the music around it. And, you know, I like to go in that direction. Sometimes it can be very inspiring to work that way and try to give a completely new twist to an older recording. I mean, you hear it more and more these days, I suppose, with mashups and people mixing different records.
I'm sorry, Alan. I have a dog barking. That's Pumpkin, the official wiener dog of Revenge of the 80s radio.
See, I don't mind the old dog in the background there, you
know. Hey, maybe that could be another Recoil song. Get those dogs that sing Jingle Bells and maybe have them do something different. There we go.
Exactly. Wailing dogs, all kinds of animals on my records.
Talk about the newest Recoil project, the one you just released in April, Selective.
Yeah, Selective is just a collection of my favorite Recoil tracks, but also the criteria wasn't just that they should be my favorites, but they should fit together in a way that made sense, a way that would sound as if they're a proper record, you know, and a record that you can listen to from beginning to end and that takes you on a path and a story and ends up, you know, concluding properly. And so many compilation albums are just thrown together without much care and attention, and I didn't want to do that. In fact, the project's really developed into an all singing, all dancing, different deluxe versions, download packages, special box editions, vinyl box sets. We've done a lot. And I guess that's the way the music business is tending to go. You can provide different formats and different versions of the same project to appeal to people that want to spend nothing, right through to people that want, the full Monty for their collection. And I'm lucky that my fans often do. They are quite, what's the word, completist. They enjoy to have every version and every format. So we've kind of concentrated more on that. And out of the whole, release, it seemed to make a lot of sense to then go and present it in a live context, which is something I've never done before. But having had all these, we did a lot of remixes for this. There's a second CD that has plenty of new mixes on. And out of those mixes, I could see a way, for the first time perhaps, to present Recoil in a live setting. We've never toured before. Putting together this kind of long extended piece of music that would work in the live context. And with that, getting together some film directors to make something stunning to go on a big screen, which is what we do. Don't expect to see a band in the conventional sense, because that's not what you're going to get. You're going to get more of an audio-visual presentation and a large screen and a film that runs all the way through.
You'll have more information on Recoil's tour on the website recoil.co.uk. That's recoil.co.uk. Alan Wilder is my guest on Revenge of the 80s Radio. You must have had to put together an interesting lineup to play live as well.
Well, actually, we don't have much of a lineup live. As I say, it's more of a presentation of the music using laptops and synths, and it's just myself and Paul Kendall. And Paul is a guy I've been working with in the studio for the last 10 years. Occasionally, the problem is because we have all these different singers, it's very difficult to take them all on the road. It's not very cost-effective, and logistically it's a nightmare, to be honest.
Yeah.
So what I do is I try and, as we reach the cities that they tend to live in, then I'll pull them in and say, right, you're playing in, you're going to come and join us in Los Angeles, and you're going to do something in New York, and, it depends where they're from and their availability. So occasionally we have a singer turn up and join in. But as I say, it's much more of a visual presentation with the film, and what I do is I take much more of a backseat.
Alan, what might fans expect from Recoil in the near future?
My plan really is to continue this tour through North and then South America. We've got lots of shows down there. Then we're doing a few more in Europe just to finish off. We've already been to Europe once, but we're doing some places that we didn't get to first time round, and going to finish up around Christmas, playing a couple of shows with Gary Newman, another legend from the 80s. In fact, we've just announced one of those in Manchester in England. That should be great. And he's coming over to DJ for us in Berlin as well. And then after that, I'll take a little Christmas break with my family, see my kids for a bit, because I'll have missed them a lot by then. And next year, just some new Recoil music, I hope, And I never quite know how it's going to sound until I've done it, because of the way I work. But I shall definitely be in the studio working on some new material.
Alan Wilder, thank you for joining us again on Revenge of the 80s Radio. For more information on Recoil's tour, check out the website recoil.co.uk, or you can check out the link on our website, revengeofthe80sradio.com. That's revengeofthe80sradio.com. Alan, let's play a track from Recoil's most recent album, Selected, Sept, on Revenge of the 80s Radio.